I remember thinking, I wish I could just disappear. Once again, it was very loud. My mother was screaming at my father, telling him to get out of the house, telling him he was useless and deserved to be homeless. I wanted to hide, but we lived in a tiny one-room apartment. There was nowhere to hide. And as the screaming continued, I remember making a promise to myself. I will never be like my mother, so cruel and aggressive. I was a teenager then. Fast forward years later, I'm standing in my kitchen looking at my 2-year-old daughter crying after I had just angrily snapped and yelled at her. And in that moment, a realization hit me really hard. I am my mother. As much as I did not want to become her, I had become her. I felt ashamed and terrified. I moved away from my home, leaving Ukraine and coming to the United States, but that sense of home was something I could not run away from. It was still inside of me. I internalized the environment I grew up in and now was replaying it in my own family. It was a painful realization, but a catalyst to change. Many people don't have relationship problems. They have childhood problems playing out inside adult relationships. It took me years to admit that I was the common denominator in my relationship challenges. Because if you really look at your life, many of the struggles you experience in relationships are not actually about the person sitting across from you. They're about patterns that were formed long before you understood what love was. You say you want love, you say you want intimacy, you say you want healthy relationship, but do you even know what healthy love feels like? I know I did not for a long time. The reality is that consciously you may want love, and intellectually you have an idea of what that is. But subconsciously, you're often seeking something different. You're seeking what feels familiar. You're seeking what feels like home. And familiarity is not always healthy. For many people, familiarity is anxiety, unpredictability, emotional distance, chaos, never quite feeling good enough. So you're not necessarily looking for love, you're looking to feel at home. And if home was chaotic, cold, critical, that is what you will continue looking to repeat. I have coached clients in their 70s and 80s who spent decades repeating the same relationship pattern. And when we uncovered what was really happening, it was never actually about the relationship. It was about a need that had never been met, a wound that had never healed, a part of themselves still searching for something they did not receive as a child, even in their older age. Until you understand this, you will continue trying to solve an internal emotional problem with external solutions. You may blame dating, you may blame men, you may blame women, you may blame your ex, but the pattern remains because the pattern goes wherever you go. Let me tell you about what will help you break the patterns down. First, let's talk about the wall you have built around your heart. And yes, most people have one. Nobody becomes God by accident. The wall was built for a reason. At some point in your life, being open felt unsafe. Maybe you were criticized or rejected. Maybe you felt unseen. Maybe the people who were supposed to protect you were the very people who hurt you. So you adapted. You learned how to protect yourself. Maybe by not trusting too quickly, by hiding your emotions, maybe by becoming a people pleaser to earn approval. And perhaps those strategies helped you survive. The problem is that what helps a child survive often prevents an adult from thriving. Because eventually that wall stops protecting you from pain and it starts preventing you from love and intimacy. You may find yourself wanting a relationship but struggling to let anybody truly get close. Or perhaps you overgive and self-sacrifice because you're trying very hard to earn love and acceptance. Either way, you are still guarded. And the thing is that the wall is not the problem. The wall was the solution. The problem is that many people never learn when it is time to put that wall down. And because they don't, they spend years creating the very loneliness they're trying to avoid. This brings us to a very important question. Who is actually running your life? The adult that you are today, or the child who learned long ago what love was supposed to look like? Just because your body grew up does not mean your emotional self grew up as well. Many people believe they're making adult choices, but if we look closely, they're often reacting from wounds that were formed decades ago. And if you peel back the layers, you discover that what you are looking for is not what you think you're looking for. Everyone needs love, support, acceptance. But when those needs were not met consistently before, we often carry them into adulthood, expecting a romantic relationship to fill the void. Then we stop relating to our partners as adults and we start relating from our childhood wounds. We become devastated by rejection. We confuse disagreement for abandonment. We become anxious when somebody pulls away. We tolerate behavior we should never tolerate because we are afraid of losing the connection. It is all because a part of us is still seeking something that was missing long ago. I've seen people spend decades chasing relationships only to realize they were never actually chasing the partner. They were chasing a feeling, the feeling of finally being chosen, accepted, being enough. And the tragedy is that no partner can permanently give you what you refuse to give yourself. No relationship can heal a wound that you are unwilling to acknowledge. Because eventually, every relationship reaches a point where your patterns show up. Different partner, same pattern. There is no coincidence there. You bring them with you. So what do we do with all of this? Do we spend our life blaming our parents in childhood? I don't believe that's the answer. At some point, we have to stop asking, why did this happen to me? And start asking, what am I going to do about it? Because while you may not be responsible for what happened to you as a child, you are responsible for what you do with it as an adult. This is where reparenting comes in. And I know this firsthand. When I became a parent, I realized I was raising my children while simultaneously trying to raise myself. Reparenting means recognizing that there is a wounded part of you that carries old fears, old beliefs, and unmet needs. But there's also an adult version of you capable of making conscious choices. The goal is not to erase the child. The goal is to strengthen the adult. The adult who can create boundaries. The adult who can tolerate discomfort. The adult who can self-soothe and regulate instead of looking for someone else to do it. One of my favorite sayings is that self-awareness is not accountability. Understanding your childhood is important and where your parents may have come from, but understanding alone changes nothing. The question is, now that you see the patterns, what are you going to do differently? Because reparenting is ultimately learning to give yourself what you have spent years trying to get from everyone else. The irony is that we're not wired for happiness, although we all say we want it. We are wired for familiarity. That is why someone who grew up around criticism may feel uncomfortable with kindness. Someone who grew up around chaos may feel unfamiliar with peace. Someone who experienced emotional distance may feel more attracted to unavailable partners than available ones. We are drawn toward what feels familiar because familiar feels like home, even when that home was painful. Here's the good news, and there's always good news. Patterns can be changed. The moment you become aware of a pattern, you gain the power to choose differently. And different choices, repeated over time, create a different life. I know because I have done it myself. The question is whether you are willing to stop living on autopilot and start creating a new definition of home. A home built on self-respect, emotional safety, personal accountability, and love. What kind of choices are you going to make?